So today's content, I will be doing a code review on a code that was submitted to me by my friend Benita. Everyone meets Benita, and I hope so. Benita, you can say I. Okay, welcome, Benita. So this is a code that was submitted by Benita, which she has asked me to review and refactor accordingly. So I will just be giving comments on what she could have done better and how she could do better moving forward. And she will be asking me questions along the way if by any chance she does not understand any of the things that I am talking about. So, basically, the first thing we want to do is refactor this get random image. So basically what this app does is it makes an API call to a random cat API, fetches images from the API and populates the boxes here with images returned from the API. This was done by Benito, as you can see. So she has done it. She is working. It is working perfectly. It's not like anything is wrong with the code. It is working perfectly. So I am just here to do a little refactor and make it faster. I'll make it shorter and much more understandable. So to achieve this particular refactoring, there is a particular promise function that we are going to make use of that is provided to us by JavaScript. If we go to MDDN, which is my favorite JavaScript documentation, MDDN states that we have a Promise.all function, a static method that takes an iterable of promises as inputs and return a single promise. This return promise fulfills when all the inputs promise fulfills, including when an empty iterable is passed. When an array of fulfillment values is reject when any of the inputs promise reject. So basically what this is telling us is that let's say you want to fetch users, you want to fetch role, you want to fetch you want to use an API that fetch users, fetch roles, fetch list of cards at the same time, and you want it to be done asynchronously using promise. You can easily make use of this Promise.all. And if you look at our interface, what we are doing is making API call to the URL here for each of these boxes. So it makes sense to build a promise that can be called for each of these boxes. So that is why how I will be actually approaching this solution. So I will leave this code so that we can compare. I will leave this and I will build a new function based on our implementation. So basically I will just start. So the first thing is I will create a new function called get random images. So what random images does is basically to create images that we can use to populate the landing page. We already have the base URL. Okay, so I like to name this kind of constants, this kind of variables as constants, and I prefer to use a capital letter for this. And we also have each of the posts where the images reside. They all have a class in common, which is post on dash box. So which means we can easily use JavaScript to retrieve all of these elements, all of these elements, and build an HTML to fill in the images inside them, right? So and blah, blah, blah. So, and as you can see as well, inside the image, inside the post box, we have images which they all have this class post image, post image, post image, post image. So which means we can easily retrieve all of these images, um, images what's them image tags. So so Benita, if at any point you can't hear me, please let me know. So the next thing is I will just be retrieving the set of image tags. As you can see, she wrote image tag, which I feel like it would be nicer if it can be called like reference in terms of plural form, which is image tags. And for you to get all the image tags in on the DOM in this our index.html, all we need to do is make use of the JavaScript documents.get class element by class name, using the class name that is attributed to our images. So once we have all the image, once we get a list of the images, we can easily do a console.log image tags for us to see what is inside our image tags. If I come to the console here, okay, I need to call the function get random images bar. Okay, so if I come here, call the function, you see that we have a list of all the image tags on the DOM, on the DOM, on the DOM, on the DOM, on the DOM. So since we have, and we know that, and from this we could get the number of image tags and build the number of promise calls we actually want to make using that email tag. So that brings me to the part where I create a variable called, I can call it image tag promises. Let me call it promises. If you have a better name, I'm open to that. Image tag promises. So now what we'll be doing is we'll be populating our image tag promises constant with a call to this URL to get random images for each of our image tags. So since we want to get this for each of our image tags, the next thing is to do is to iterate over the image tags. So we can say for y index is equals to 0, and our array where we now be image tags image tags dot length, y index is less than image tags dot length, and we keep incrementing the index. So we notice that we can easily get each of our image tags, so we can easily then build our promises by saying image promises, image promises dot push calling of the API. So we need to call this API since we want different images for each of the image tags. Say fetch the image, right? And then so since fetch returns a promise, we need to, like, when you are using fetch, you need to like convert your response, or don't let us even jump. Let's see what this has for us. So let's console log our image, console.log image promises, so that you will understand the reason why we are doing what we are doing. So if we come back now, you will notice that we have just bunch of promises, and there is nothing we can really do with this. So that is why we need to append the dot then to get the response. Yeah, right. Sorry, correct. Response, and convert it to something we can use. Let me just console.log response. Let's see what is inside our response. So what I'm using here is what we call arrow function. So arrow functions allow you to easily write short functions without necessarily using the curly brackets. I really like using this when I don't need to make an extra call, or I don't need to perform too many logic. So so if we come back here now, you see that now we are having this. This is quite different from the response we are getting before. But there is really nothing we can do with this. This does not have the data that we want. So that is why we need to then convert our response to JSON, which will give us the body of our actual response. Sorry, I'm quite used to another language. So if we refresh now, you realize we still have pending promises, but you realize what we quite have now is quite different, as we have our message inside it and we have our success. Because if you go to this API, where is the base URL? If you visit this from your URL, if you say promise, you get the message and you get the status, which is what we actually need, right? So Benita, please, are you following? Are you getting what I'm trying to do so far? Okay, all right, so we can go ahead then. So now that we've actually built our promise, so we can easily then make use of our Promise.all to resolve all the promises that is inside this array that we have built, that is provided for us by JavaScript. So we can say const. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. You raised your hand. Oh, oh. Sorry, sorry. I am supposed to just leave it like this. Thanks for reminding me. So we are supposed to just return this. So this response.json is what will now be pushed into this our array. So I hope you get that now. Thanks for calling my attention to that. So the next thing now is we need to get our final response. We can say const promises. We can say, sorry, const response responses. That is the response. Is response the correct? Okay, let me call it image response. I don't know. I don't have a particular variable name for it. But const image responses will now be and await on Promise.all. Oh, let me try something. I want to try something. Let me try something. I think we can do this. Await and mark this as an async function. Async function. Okay. Then I can remove this guy. I want to see what I actually have. Image promises. I want to do a little experiment. I feel like that should work. I'm not getting anything. No. I feel like that should. Oh, why am I not getting anything? Oh, wait. Aha, yeah. Yeah, I have something. Still the same. There isn't really much difference. So let me just follow what I actually trust. Don't let me waste our time there. So now let's use our JavaScript Promise.all. So we need to set to all of these promises, our image tag promises, image tag promises. As you can see, this accepts an array. You can use a then on it as well, but we don't need a then since we are already awaiting the response here. I don't need the await anymore. So if we go ahead and console log our image responses now, blah blah blah, let's refresh. It is coming, it should come. Let me see. Guys, I don't know why it is coming quite late. So anyway, we see that we have our images, which is exactly what we need just from a single one. So we now have everything that we need by just doing that. So since we now have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, which is the number of cards we have here as well, so we can easily then append each of these responses to each of our image tags. So how do we do that? It is quite simple. We know that we have a certain number of image tags, so which is our for loop. We can use our for loop. Let me just, for simplicity, our for loop done our image tags. With that, we can easily get the message inside each of the image responses using their index. So we can. So okay, but which one? Where did you get lost? This one, this first statement. Okay, so what I was trying to say is we have our we have resolved our image responses. We've seen it in our, you saw that part, right? The console. So what we are doing now is we are going through each of the image tags to pick its own particular image response to actually use, or URL. Are you getting me? We've built this, right? We've built this. We have our image response, and each of, okay, let me just do this. Don't worry. Console.log. Okay, let me do this. So if we want to retrieve the first image response in this array, what do? We say console.log image response, the first one. This will give us the first one. You understand this, right? You know how to access an array. Okay, so now if we refresh this, it is coming. I don't know why it is taking time. Yeah, you see that now we have the first element in the image response. Are you getting me? Do you get that part? So that is why we are doing another for loop to like assess each of these image responses. Are you getting me? So what we now need to do now is, so let me say I want to access each of the message attributes, this message attributes in each of the responses. I can then say console.log image responses, the current index, right, dot message. Do you understand this? Yes, yes. Yes, correct. Correct, correct, correct. So this index will allow us to get, you know, one thing you need to understand is our image responses and our image tags are of the same length because we use the image tags length to actually build the image responses. That's why we can easily use the image tags length to access each of the image responses. Do you understand now? Okay. For every image tag, there is an image response, right? So for each image tag, access its image response. Share you understand now? So using the index. So if we come back here now, you see that we have our images, which we console logged here. Do you get that part? Yeah. So we can move ahead then. So now that we have that, we can also access each of our image tags like this. Image tags, the index that we want to access, the source of the image. That is, we want to set the source attribute of that particular image tag. Are you getting me? To responses, to image tag responses, the particular index dot the message attribute. Do you get that part now? It makes sense to you, Bar? So with this now, we have set the image source for each of our boxes in the HTML here. Remember, we already got it, the set of image tags from here. Are you getting me? So instead of this, instead of what we currently have here, we have been able to bring it down to a less number of codes and maybe, I don't know, simpler if you have been following. Shane, you understand what I'm trying to say, right? Yeah. So now we can then go ahead to comment this out. Sorry. We can go ahead to comment all of this out. No, I can't do that. This is what I need to comment out. Functions. Bam. And if we come back now, you realize we have our cat and dog loading again. Let me refresh. Let me do a add refresh, add reload. So we have our cats loading again, and it's with just this lines of code. Do you understand? Okay. Okay. So basically, line, we defined our variables we defined a variable to hold all the promises that we want to build. Then we went through each of our image tags to build promises for each of them, right? You get that part now? So yes, based on the number of image tags that we have. So if you have 20 image tags, this will build promises for 20 image tags. If you have 100 image tags, this will build promises for 100 image tags. Are you getting me? Now, with that, we can then go ahead to use Promise.all, which we saw in our MDN here, to actually resolve each of these promises. You get that part, right? Kind of. Promise.all accepts an array of promise and resolves them to give you the value if it is successful. As you can see now, the first promise here we have is 3. The second one here is 42, and the third one here is has a value of full. So if you then each of the promises are passed into the Promise.all, which then resulted in the values of 3, 42, and full, which are what is passed. We are passed into each of the promises. Let me show you another. Their examples here are not that very convincing, but just look at Promise.all as okay. Let me give you a very good life scenario. Let's say you want to create users. You are on a form. You want to create users. During the process of creating a user, you need to fetch the role the user will belong to. Are you getting me? And you also want to fetch you also want to hit an API that gets the list of countries that the user can belong to. Are you getting me? So it makes sense to wrap all of these promises into a single one and make all the calls at once. Yeah, so that's like the purpose of Promise.all. When you want to resolve multiple promises at once, like asynchronously, but you want all of them to be resolved before you continue what you want to continue. Although you have the opportunity of either using Promise.all settled. What Promise.all settled does is it only returns the promise when all the promises or returns promise fulfills when all input promises settle, including when an empty iterable is passed with an array of objects that describe the outcome of each promise. So with all settled, all your promises must pass. If any of them fails, it will not work. But with Promise.all, it will still return you the promises that actually go about their business, that actually worked. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It just basically makes the calls to where they are supposed to go, or performs a particular action that is actually needed, that has been converted into a promise. Are you getting me? Yeah. So for Promise.all, if any of your promise actually fails, it will reject, it will stop. But all settled, it will wait for all promises to resolve themselves before it actually returns any form of response to you. So that is the purpose of this line. Sorry, that's the purpose of this line. So now that we have our image response, right, we can then go ahead to loop through each of the image tags based on the length and the index that we have set here. Now we are using the index to access. You remember our index is a collection, it's like an array of HTML collection. Our image response as well is an array of responses from this our Promise.all that has been resolved. Right? You get that part, right? So now each of those image responses, we are accessing them using the index from our for loop. So now if when your index is 0, it accesses the image tag at an index of 0 and the image response at an index of 0. When your index is 1, it goes on and on and on until your index until this particular um, um, condition is fulfilled. So once this condition is fulfilled, it stops. Do you understand that part now? You understand this now? Yeah. So once we finish all of this, then we can then go ahead to call our get random images. So as you can see, that works now, even though we've commented out the previous API call. So that is the first part of our refactoring. So I don't know, let me just bring these, let me bring this here. So I believe if it might be a bit complex, but if you take your time to go through it, you understand it much more better. We can improve it. We can also improve this to actually call itself. We don't need to necessarily do this. There is something called self-invoked functions in JavaScript, so we can easily do this. Wrap it inside a curly brackets and call the function itself. This is what we call self-invoked function in JavaScript. Are you still there? Okay. So with this, we don't need to call the get random images again. We could just come. You see that it is calling it. It is still calling it. So depends. That's just so this makes it self-invoked. It's not a necessity. So we can just, for simplicity, let me just call it. So the next thing that I would like us to do is to refactor. Let us start refactoring the other part, which is the part that we are using to actually switch between the tabs. So the first thing I want to refactor is the fact that there is this part in the code that is being used for animation, which I don't think is necessary to be done. There's so many repetition of it. Many. No, I feel this can be refactored into CSS using the CSS keyframes. So, which is basically what is being done here too. Basically, animating the boxes from display none to display block, and using an opacity of 0 to 1 and fade in and fade out. So this can easily be achieved using CSS keyframe and associating. Okay, is already yes, interesting. So I don't need to using the fade effects anyway. So fade effects, where is the post box? So this fade effects, there will be effects to ease in and out, the same implementation and the opacity. So if we come to the browser now and refresh, you will notice how it is coming in and out. If I remove it, you will see the difference. Let me comment this out. Yeah, we can see compared to this. Yeah, that is much slicker and is not appearing all of a sudden. So that's that. Then so with that we can easily go ahead to so let's start. Let me start from somewhere. So the first thing I want to do is create a function that accepts the tab name. So when you click on each of these tab, the tab name is supplied. Where is it? Which is like the tab name will be tech, food, news, and all. So let's get to work. So the function, which is I'll call it function. Please, are you with me, Benito? I can't.
Yes,
Okay. So toggle. I mean, it could be much more interactive. Toggle tab. We are accepting the event and the tab name. So instead of coming here to add, instead of iterating to each of the items to attach a click event to them, you can easily come here and say on click, call the toggle function, toggle tab, pass events, and I think it's called events, and pass events and tab name, which is called all. So okay, this will be single. So every time you click on all, this will be picked. So if I come here, I'll say console.log tab name. If you come here, we can easily if you come to all, you can see it is being logged. So we can attach this event to the others, to the other tab. Sorry for the language. So here will be tech, here will be food. I mean, there are so many ways to achieve this. This is just the way that I thought about while I was refactoring this. So you can see we have food, we have news, we have all. So we can easily use that to track the particular span tag that has been clicked. So now let's get to work. The next thing now is I want to know if the tab name is all. If the tab name is all, I want to show all the box elements. I want to show all the box elements. So before I start, I need to get the list of box contents. All these post box, I need to get a list of them. My own way, which is const I can say tab contents or post boxes equals to documents dot queries. No, let me just, I already know it is a class name. Dot get elements by class name, which is post box. Then I also need the tags, the span tags, the list of the span tags, which is called filter item. This could have been called something like, so const filter tabs equals to documents dot get element by class name, filter item. So so now we can then say, now the first thing I want to take care of is what should happen when you click on all. All the elements should show, right? And the particular all should be set as the active index, right? Yeah. So I can then say this will be set as active index based on the element that is clicked, or we could say span tag that is clicked. So for I want to check if tab name of why stop doing me like that is equals to all. The first thing is I want to show all of these post boxes, so I can say post for each box or 6 dot length, then set their attributes post box 6, access it through the index, just like we did for our image tags here. Index dot their style dot display set as block. Okay, you are raising your hand. Okay, go ahead, Benito. Okay, all right. No. Oh, yes. I'm coming. Yeah. They do. They basically just different way of querying them. We could use this too. Let me just copy. So filtered items for okay. Let me just filtered items feel like the items you are filtering. That's why I'm using filter tabs. Yeah. So post boxes dot length blah. So we set it to display, and we also set the particular element, the particular filter tabs that is equal to the pass tab as the active. We need to set as the active tab. So how do we do that? So we can say let me just do it the brute force way and see if I can then refactor later. So I will say for each filter tabs, right? So I'm going to check if the current filter tabs, right, using that index dot get attributes, just like what you are doing here. I believe you did something similar. Yeah, get attributes, the attributes which is data filter, this attributes, if that data filter is equals to our tab name, right? We can then go ahead to say the particular filter tab index dot class lists dot add. So this class list gets the list of classes on the particular tab. Then we are adding the active class to it. Basically, that is this. Then otherwise we remove it, else we can say that the particular filter tab, the particular filter tab, I keep doing that, dot remove this particular class. So if the filter tab if the tab name is all, I feel like this is not necessary. I'm not supposed to do this here, but since I already know the tab, I could just say let me just leave it like this for now. So if the filter tab data filter is equals to the tab name, we are adding the active filter, otherwise we are removing it. So this is for when the tab name is all. So in situations whereby it is not all, we only want to show the box contents that have the, so if you are clicking on tech, we only want to show boxes that has tech in their class name. If you are clicking on food, we only want to show this. If you are clicking on news, we only want to show this type of boxes. So that's the next thing that we want to do. Please, do you understand up to this point? Okay. So the next thing we need to do now is we need to go through each of the post boxes, right? Just like what we did over there, right? So each of the post boxes, we will now check if the class name, if the current post box using the index dot class list contains, right, the tab name, the tab name that was passed. Since our class name and tab name are in line with each other, if it contains the current tab name, then we can say set the particular post box. Why am I copying empty space? Set the particular post box to display block. Otherwise, set it as none. Right? You get this part? Do you? Okay. Uh, Either way, we need to have an access to each of, except there is a way to like say, oh, all the post boxes set it to block, which I don't know. Are you getting me? The reason why we are looping through it is because, well, the reason why we have to loop through it is because, let's say, for example, you have gone to, let me say, this guy. By the time you come back here, right, you want to loop through all the box and set them as well. Are you getting me? Let's try it. Let's remove this. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Initially, everything is set to display, right? Because that's like the normal behavior. But if we come to tab, we have 3 elements. I'm not sure if it will work. Then we come back here. This is still working because you still have your this thing. Let me comment that part of your code down. Let's see if it will work. I'm not sure, and I can't really say it won't work and it will work. So if I refresh, come to this guy, it's not even working yet. Okay, tech, food, news. Now can you see what is happening now? I'm clicking on all, but it's not responding. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's not showing the rest of the boxes because we've actually changed it. So if we come back here now, it doesn't show it. So that's why we need that loop here, so that when the tab name is all, we loop through all the post boxes and set the display as block. Do you understand now? So if we try it again now, you see that it is coming up again now. Before, yeah. So okay, so that is that part. And so now we've done this part, like we are getting that behavior. You come to food, it shows you food. You come to news, it shows you news. You come to tech, it shows you tech. You come to all, it's not doing anything. So we need to, sorry, it's clicking. So the next thing we need to do now is show the active tab, right, for when you change. So we've done that for when it is all, but we've not done that for when it is not all. I think I can do, let me remove this. I think this should be out of this place. This will work. Then we can, after you've done all this your magic, we can check. I feel it should work. No, it won't work because I need, yeah, it should work. It should work. I don't need to do the add another implementation. So we've done this. Now we want to set the active tab. Yeah, it should work. So add reload. Yeah, it works. It works. Do you understand? Okay, so Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Initially, we have this for loop inside when the tab name is all, right? So the first thing is we are setting all boxes to block, and we are also setting the current tab. If the current tab is equals to the data filter, we are adding the active filter, otherwise we are removing it, right? You get that part? So I'm saying instead of writing, because what I was about to do is do this, paste it here as well, which does not make any sense. So we could just, like, we can, since we are doing another loop, we can just use this same implementation, since that is not dependent, the setting of active is not dependent on anything, on any of this if block here, is a different entity on its own. Are you getting that part? So that's why I removed the for loop and moved it here. So what this does is goes through each filter tabs and sets them as active if the tab name is equal to the data filter attributes value. Then otherwise it removes the active filter from the class of the elements if it does not exist. Sorry, if it exists on it. Do you understand now? Yeah. So goes through the list of filter tabs, gets their attribute filter. Is the attribute filter equals to tab name? Fine. Then set it as this thing. Otherwise, remove the class list. Simple. So that's like, instead of this, which is how many lines of code? I don't know maths that much, right? I feel like, I don't know, depends on you. I feel like it is better, and it is much simpler to explain, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So basically that is the end of our refactoring. Tada, tada, tada. So finish. Do you have any question? Okay. So we just I'm not sure if I can create a pull request. It does. Since you've not like invited me to the repo, I don't think I can. Oh, it's a public repo. Refactored Benita's code. Check out. Okay, check out. I have no, the SSH key is not okay. I'm coming, but I don't think that should matter. To check out refactor git push origin refactor. Yeah. I'm unable to access it. So and we'll find a way to share it. So that's all right.